analysis for data and use them for the other safe purposes.
Right. So the first thing I want to say to you is one thing that is happening at the regional level, which my view is really interesting, I did write an article about this, is several regional organizations today have established normally emergency centers for disaster preparedness. So if you look from ASEAN to the Gulf region, for example, every region now has a center. And it's basically done in order to foster regional cooperation on disaster preparedness. Because clearly, if a country is somehow affected by major natural disasters, the very first help should come from the neighboring countries. So this is an extremely important initiative. So far, the centers only deal with disaster preparedness. But one of the initiatives that the Academy has launched is trying to propose for these centers to transform the mission from natural disasters into broad disaster preparedness. It can be man-made disasters, or it can be natural disasters. And this would allow somehow to inject more resources into the centers that already have a mission. It would allow somehow to train more scientists on natural disasters or man-made disasters. In addition, the American Academy of Arts and Sciences also sponsor fellowships. So if you are interested in studying in the United States or have an internship in the United States, or you're interested in accessing, certain resources, we do have some resources available for younger scholars who might be interested in pursuing, a specific career in these issues. But I think one of the things we should encourage young people to think about is nuclear testing is now intertwined with other issues, right? And so it's very important to understand nuclear testing in the regional context. It can be climate change, it can be disaster preparedness, or it can be regional security. And so becoming an expert on nuclear testing plus another regional issue is really key to advance the cause of the CTBTO, I think.
That's great. So what about we just discussed about the nuclear testing. So North Korea is going to the withdraw from their nuclear going to ready for denuclearization of that area. So how you think this will play a role for the CTBTO or impact on the CTBTO efforts?
So I think we can be skeptical of the process of denuclearization in the Korean Peninsula. I think for one reason in particular, that in my view, the United States has not pondered very clearly the cost for denuclearization in the Korean Peninsula. All sounds really great, but what actually the North Koreans are asking is for, in fact, the United States to withdraw its nuclear umbrella and nuclear support over South Korea. This means a major reshuffling of US alliances in Asia Pacific. And quite frankly, I don't think the United States has pondered the cost of this. I don't think we have actually understood what this does, for example, on the US-South Korea alliance or US-Japan alliance. The destruction of the test site of North Korea, however, I think is a very positive sign. I think it's something we should celebrate because we have very little to celebrate otherwise. It was a little bit of a show, in my view, and not done necessarily it was done more, I think, for PR purpose than for strategic purpose. But nonetheless, I think it's a very important sign that countries can commit to these issues. Even if it's costly, countries can advance, global issues like, banning nuclear test once and for all. So I think it's a great sign, but I think the battle is still pretty intense to get to the point of, victory.
So okay, now we come to the subcontinent region. US is going to sign some civil nuclear deal with India. So how it will affect that region, because both countries, Pakistan and India, are the nuclear power, and both are interested in this nuclear civil supplier good. So do you think that it will disbalance any the peace or the situation?
So, well, if you are a nuclear non-proliferation expert, you would probably complain about the US-India deal. I mean, there's no doubt that in order to get this deal, the United States had to convince many to make several exceptions. And no other country other than India could have actually received those exceptions. Because it's India, because it's such a huge market, because it's such an important emerging global leader, of course the United States decided to make a major exception. However, people also argued that by doing so, the United States has fundamentally undermined the credibility of its own commitment to nuclear non-proliferation. Let's remember the United States has been, with the Soviet Union, the main architect behind the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. The nuclear non-proliferation regime is de facto one of the top priorities for the United States and has always been. And so the US-India deal has somehow sacrificed part of this commitment, not because where proliferation concerns, India is already a nuclear weapon state, but because somehow has allowed a major exception and has reduced the validity of being an NPT member, right? So you can receive civilian assistance for nuclear energy if you are an NPT member. This is why many countries decided to pay the price and the cost of being a member in order to actually benefit from the access to nuclear energy technology. Now, if a country does not belong to the NPT get the same benefits, that countries like Indonesia or Brazil might argue, well, why am I paying this price when actually I can just circumvent the rules and get to the same result? Now, this has already generated a few consequences. You have seen, for example, the Russians and the Chinese going very aggressively on trading with Pakistan, for example, on nuclear technology. You have seen the Russians outmaneuvering the United States on the global nuclear energy market. The Russians right now possess 35% of the monopoly of all nuclear agreements in the world. So the United States is not leading anymore on nuclear trading. And this, in part, has been really a rebuff against the US-India deal. In addition, in order, of course, to go through with the agreement, the United States had to actually ask the Nuclear Suppliers Group to make major exceptions. Now, a regime exists because countries accept certain rules. If you have to make exceptions for profit or for your own, national benefits, at some point, these multilateral agreements just, lose meaning. So in my view, in the short term, India will not be admitted into the NSG, but not because of the United States, fundamentally because of China. And China has argued that India will not be admitted unless Pakistan also gets admitted. So now you are in a major friction where you have two major nuclear energy countries plus nuclear weapons countries that now sit outside of the multilateral regime. And I don't think for the safety and security of these programs that this should remain as it is. I think we should make progress. But making exceptions will further undermine the nuclear non-proliferation regime. So it's a catch-22 situation, which I think it's now very serious. And I don't know how this will actually be unfolded or resolved.
Okay, so you are from the U.S. Academy of Sciences. So how you will suggest for the youth who are the new in this field, especially with the youth member, how they can build their capacity, or what is they can grow their future in this field of the nuclear disarmament?
Very interesting question. I think one thing that we never explain to the young people is that there are many communities, many nuclear communities, right? There is a technical community that deals with nuclear energy, and normally you end up working for national laboratories, for example. There is a community that deals predominantly with nuclear non-proliferation issues. Then there is a community that deals with arms control and deterrence. This is the strategy community. And then finally, there is a community that deals with nuclear disarmament. The problem with the nuclear issue today is that these communities work in isolation from each other, right? So the nuclear disarmament community does not talk to the arms control community or the nuclear non-proliferation community. My sense is that these divisions need to stop, because there is too much division and we don't make any progress if we keep considering these issues separated from each other. So my strong suggestion for the young people is try actually to have a broader view of the nuclear issues. Get an interest in nuclear disarmament, but try to develop also an interest and a little bit of knowledge on nuclear non-proliferation issues. Don't look at nuclear disarmament in isolation from other issues, because all these issues bring about strategic questions, all of them, from deterrence to disarmament. And also embrace rigorous academic scholarship. This is really key. You know, too often, particularly the nuclear disarmament, but also the deterrence camp, are too much on the activist side. And they don't necessarily spend time to produce serious scholarship. And serious scholarship is key to advance the debate. So invest in studying these issues, invest in serious research, right? And then try to publish as much as possible. There are a series of avenues, certainly in the United States, but also around the world today, like the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists. There has a new section today called The Voices of the Future. And this is a space specifically for young people to publish. It's extremely important to be visible, to publish, and to do research that is critical and serious, and perhaps also a little bit unbiased. I think this will really advance your career. And then finally, networking. Networking means having the courage to speak out at conferences and meetings. You know, we have all been young at some point, and so particularly when it comes to technical issues, young people feel very, unprepared to ask difficult questions. And instead, I think you should put yourself out there, attend meetings, try to talk to people, and ask questions. This is really important, and you'll see that many of the questions you raise are very difficult questions we don't have an answer for. But I think networking, nuclear community is a small community, so there is space actually to have more involvement from young people, and we really welcome this. So I would suggest do your serious scholarship and be involved as much as possible.
Thank you, Giselle, for the time with us.
Thank you.
All right.
All righty.
Oh,
That's it.
Thank you so much.